Hi, Nikhil sir. How are you?
Hey Neha, how are you doing? You don't have to call me Nikhil sir, okay? You can call me Nikhil.
Okay, you are huge inspiration for all of us, and I'm very excited for this. So I'll start this quickly. My audience is of age around 16 to 20 who are very confused about their career, and you come from a middle class family and you dropped out of school. So how did your family react to that? I wanted to know about that.
Yeah, firstly, let me say this. I think it's great what you're doing. I have seen you on social media. I think mediums such as you to improve financial literacy in India is very good. So, pat yourself on your back and kudos to Neha for doing a really great job at educating more people, especially that 15 to 20 age group.
This is
Uh,
huge, sir.
so
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so for me, it's been a long time, right? Like I've had the same job I have today, trading, investing for about 17, 18 years now. I started at 17. I'm 35 years old now. So I've been doing exactly the same thing for too long, one might say. But when I started off, things were fairly organic. Starting trading was organic. I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Uh, the one really good thing that happened is I caught that huge bull cycle in India. The last 18, 20 years have been very good for equity investors. And, uh, and at some level, I've been a beneficiary of that, like everybody else in our industry today.
So how did your family reacted when you said you want to drop out of your school at age of 13 or 14?
Yeah, so I think they knew me, and I was not a very intelligent or very smart kid. It's not like I got the best marks. You often hear about people like, Mark Zuckerberg quit Harvard and, built Facebook and stuff like that. That is not me. I was a terrible student going to a crappy school in Bangalore. So even if I were to have continued education, not much would have come out of it. So luckily they had the faith to, think that at least he'll work and have a job and do something. And things worked out in my favor by virtue of many different circumstances around me.
Okay, so you had that mental support from your family, so it was a quick, like smooth for you to start after dropping out. We can say that.
Yeah, it wasn't too difficult. No.
In the world of entrepreneurship, success is a big word. Were you always that much confident that you would be successful somehow?
So Neha, success is a very relative thing. Does anyone truly feel successful at any point of time? I would like to contest that. Uh, Everybody's, like working out of their own insecurities and what is happening in their own life today. For an outsider, somebody will look at you and be like, Neha is so successful, right? She has this big social media following. She's so young and doing so well. But in your own head, you're fighting different battles of your own. So uh, I don't think anybody can be categorized as successful and unsuccessful. I think we all live a life which is up and down. And yeah, so I kind of like live out of my own insecurities, as do you and everybody else who appears successful.
Hmm. And now you're working on a new startup, True Beacon. So, what are
Yeah.
your dreams for that, and how you're gonna achieve that?
So True Beacon is an asset management company. When rich people want to invest in public equity, they use it as a medium to do it in a more efficient way. We are cheaper than the incumbent players in the market today. People charge, 2% a year to manage your money if you make money or do not make money. There are middlemen, there are distributors. We're trying to eliminate all of that and make a cleaner, more efficient experience when it comes to asset management. So early days, True Beacon has been around for a little over 2 years now. It's still the beginning. Hopefully, in time, it does well and it's able to service people well and they like the product.
जस्ट लाइक जीरोधा मतलब आपका जो यूएसपी था वो था कि ब्रोकरेज आपने एकदम कम कर दी एंड ट्रू बीकन में भी आई थिंक क्योंकि वेल्थ मैनेजमेंट आई हैव आल्सो वर्क फॉर वेल्थ मैनेजमेंट कंपनी तो वहां पर भी आई थिंक 2% तो मिनिमम होता ही है एंड देन जो सेल कर रहे हैं उनका भी पार्ट होता है उस एआईएफ में या पीएमएस में तो आई थिंक आपका यूएसपी से इस बार भी सेम ही रहेगा कि जो ब्रोकरेज है या जो फीस है उसको एकदम कम कर देना. ओके. सो व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट इन्वेस्टिंग, डू यू हैव अ चेकलिस्ट? लाइक मैं कुछ इंटरव्यू सुनती हूँ तो कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि अगर फाउंडर्स या फिर टीम में से ज्यादा फैमिली वाला सीन चल रहा है कि फैमिली ट्री है पूरा बना हुआ है बिजनेस में, तो वो वाला बिजनेस अवॉइड करना है. वी शुडंट इन्वेस्ट इन दैट काइंड ऑफ बिजनेस. सो डू यू हैव अ चेकलिस्ट? ऐसा भी कुछ आपका?
Well, I don't like to buy companies which are too expensive, जिनमें profit ना हो. अगर आप सोचे कि there is company X today which is losing 500 crores or 2000 crores, or if a company is making 100 crores but its market cap is 4 5,000 crores, I'm very traditional in that sense that I like to look at profitability before I invest in a company. I don't buy growth stocks like people call it today. I still buy companies which have a track record of profitability and a great management and stuff like that. Around the family resolution or a family or family's involvement in a board, sometimes it has worked out, sometimes it has not. Like if you look at countries like Japan, there are like, multi-generational family members who are operating the company and doing really well. Even in India, you look at the Adanis, you look at the Ambanis, a lot of family members are involved, but their businesses are robust and fairly efficient. So I don't have a filter around family involvement. Also, I'm in a family business myself, right? I work, me and my brother are partners, so I can't like critique and be hypocritical about what I'm doing myself. But outside of profitability, things I look at are, what industry the company is in is very important to me. I would only buy companies in sectors that I am bullish about beyond a 10-year outlook. So that's a big check. I don't like companies with too much debt. I don't like companies where promoters are diluting to a point where they don't have too much skin in the game. Stuff like that.
ओके ओके. सो प्रॉफिटेबल होने चाहिए, रेवेन्यूज होने चाहिए, एंड देन प्रमोटर्स का स्टेक होना चाहिए कंपनी में. ये नहीं कि वो प्लेजिंग कर रहे हैं या फिर सेल आउट करते जा रहे हैं कंटिन्यूअसली. ये कुछ रेड फ्लैग्स हो सकते हैं जो हम चेक कर सकते हैं बिफोर पिकिंग एनी कंपनी. अभी से लॉकडाउन में बहुत सारे न्यू इन्वेस्टर्स आए, स्पेशली यंग एज. जो मेरी ऑडियंस है वो स्पेशली यंग एज है, जो 15 to 20 एज के ग्रुप में है. तो डू यू थिंक कि ये स्टे करने वाले? लाइक अभी हम बात करें 2022 में जो वॉलेटिलिटी बढ़ रही है कि थोड़ा फॉल आ सकता है, तो अभी भी क्या ये स्टे करेंगे? ज़ेरोधा ने बहुत अच्छी ग्रोथ दिखाई है पिछले 2 साल में. सो व्हाट डू यू थिंक अबाउट न्यू इन्वेस्टर्स?
See, the penetration in India is very low. हमारी population कितनी भी है, 130, 140 crore people. Only about 2% of our country, has either directly or indirectly ever bought equity. That number in the West on a relative basis is significantly higher, right? Like in America, maybe 50, 60% of the population has indirect access to equity. It could be something as simple as their 401ks got some equity exposure, but they do have equity exposure. तो इंडिया भी उस nascent stage में है जहां we can't really talk about how many people are coming into the equity markets without talking about how big the country is. So I think it's early days. Under current circumstance, with inflation being where it is, the government discloses inflation number at about 6% but if one were to be a little more pragmatic, अगर आप on the ground inflation को देखें, so it seems like it's a lot higher than 6%, right? Crude oil has rallied 100%. You look at steel, copper, most commodities are in a crazy bull run. So if you were to assume real pragmatic inflation is 10% in India, very few avenues where you can park capital and not allow for your wealth to kind of diminish by virtue of inflation. And equity markets remain a great medium where you can park money. Taxation is good. If you hold it for a year, you only pay 10% LTCG plus surcharge. It's liquid. If there were something like a pandemic or an emergency, you can liquidate that money at any point of time. And in the last 10 or 20 years, equity markets have returned 11, 12% a year. So it's a good avenue, and I think a lot more people will start investing in equity. And for that reason, I think this number of 2% will go up significantly with time.
So how does your portfolio look like? Like, is it diversified more into equity and mutual funds and lesser into fixed income instruments? What advice you have for young investors to diversify?
Sure. So see, when you're younger, right, like my portfolio is different today because I've been doing this for a long time.
Mhm.
But if I have to be fair, when I was 17 and I started trading, access to capital was much smaller than it is for me today. So I would, trade derivatives, pick the instrument with the maximum amount of leverage, like borrow money from your broker and buy out of the money call options or put options kind of a thing, right? I'm a fairly bearish person. I'm quite pessimistic in my outlook about equity markets. So more often than not, I would, like bet that the worst case scenario will happen and I would buy deep out of the money puts and expect the markets to crash. But I can't do that anymore today because with time and scale, you can't trade like that and you have to have like checks and balances in place. So today, because I think markets are expensive, I hold about 50% in debt. And when I say debt, I don't like corporate debt. I don't like debt which does not have great ratings. I pretty much find myself buying government debt. So things like national highways, Indian railways, HUDCO, things which are like, the tax-free bonds I'm a big fan of. You don't pay any tax on them and you get about 4.25%. Bank FDs give a lot lesser than that and they're riskier. So when someone looks at it, from a logical manner, you buy a tax-free bond, A, it is safer than a bank FD, and B, it gives you a higher return than a bank FD. It's a no-brainer, right? More people should be buying these bonds. So I do 50% in fixed income and the balance 50% in large cap blue chip equity, not companies which are not truly profitable, but companies which have a long track record of being profitable.
This is a big statement because you come from a brokerage firm, but still you have parked your 50% into fixed income instruments. Because as we youngsters, we are more inclined into equity or other markets which are riskier and which can give us good returns. But also, do you also think that this year will be for real estate or gold, like we have seen small cap or mid cap rally in 2020 and 2021? So this year belongs to fixed income instruments or lesser risky products.
No, I think fixed income will not do well for the next 1 or 2 years by virtue of inflation, right? Like yields will go up. You would probably have mark-to-mark losses even on tax-free bonds. So you enter fixed income today if you're looking at it from a 20-year perspective. But from a 1 or 2 year perspective, inflation looks like it will continue to climb, and that is not uh, good for fixed income. So no. Gold, I think, is very interesting. The cost of mining and kind of like excavating and bringing gold out versus what price it is trading at today, that 17, $1,800. I think that arbitrage in between is very tiny. I don't think the price of gold will fall significantly from here. If you go back in time and you look at gold, gold has always been a great hedge against inflation.
Mhm.
You look at how much a median house costed in America in the 1970s and how much gold was required to buy a median house. You needed lesser gold in 1980s, you needed lesser gold in 1990s, and you need less gold today than you needed in 1970 to buy a median house. And gold has a lot of history behind it, right? Like you have centuries of data as to why gold has worked, and people really believe in that asset class. The problem for India is we don't have any of our own gold. Every, when Neha goes out and buys earrings and they're made of gold, that gold is imported from another country and brought into India, and it is very bad for us fiscally. If you just look at how much of a fiscal impact gold has had, I would say, like something like $500 million of gold has been imported in the last few years alone. So
Last year, I
from
think.
that stand,
Mhm.
Yeah, so from that standpoint, I would say gold is not good for the country buying too much gold, but as an asset class in itself, I'm a big fan of gold. I really like it. I think, especially when there is more chaos around crypto and uh, a lot of the newer asset classes become volatile, the older asset classes will become more relevant when that happens.
As we are talking about gold, so let's talk about digital gold also, what we call cryptocurrencies. So everyone, including me, is promoting cryptocurrencies through educational videos or somehow or the other way. So what do you think
Mhm.
about cryptocurrencies? Have you invested yourself?
I have not. See, we work in a very regulated space, right? Like we are monitored and regulated by RBI and SEBI and everybody else. So for someone in my place to buy crypto is probably unnecessary complication in life. So I kind of like shy away from it. But for people who are recommending crypto to other people, I think they have to be cautious. Like it's a very, very volatile asset class. It's down, what, 50% in a month. Now, if you recommended someone to buy crypto 3 months ago and they're down 50% on their portfolio, that's not very responsible behavior. It's an asset class that most people truly do not understand. And even from a regulatory standpoint, it's very gray, right? Like, Russia has gone against it, China has gone against it. Uh, many, many more countries, because it is a threat on their central bank currency, will probably go against it. So I think people have to be cautious around crypto. Don't buy because somebody is telling you to buy crypto. If you don't understand the asset class and how it works, probably better to stay away. And uh, investment is more about compounding and time in the market. And if anything you think can make you 100% return in 1 year and you're investing into it, more often than not, it will not.
एंड देन मुझे क्वेश्चन दिख रहे हैं अभी मेटावर्स के बारे में, लाइक कोई ट्रेंड है जो एक्चुअली में हो रहा है या फिर ये सिर्फ यूट्यूब पर है या फिर हम बात करें यंगस्टर्स, मार्केट्स में भी कुछ इसका इफेक्ट है?
Yeah, see, मुझे तो लगता है कि metaverse का use case definitely है, right? Like, I mean, think about things like today we are having a meeting on Zoom. 1 year, if I had a meeting ago, if I had a meeting, are you in Bombay, Neha?
Delhi, sir.
Delhi, okay. So a year ago, if I had a meeting in Delhi, I would have had to come to Delhi and meet you. Like 6 months ago, I could do it on Zoom. Tomorrow, if the metaverse is able to create an environment where we both are sitting in a room and it feels like we're sitting next to each other, and I can look at your facial expressions and your body language and all of that. If it really takes stuff like that to that level, I think there's definitely a use case, right? I'm approaching it from the angle that, I've done one or two tiny investments in companies around the metaverse. But an easy way to have metaverse exposure, I think, is Microsoft and Facebook. Both these companies are building around the metaverse and they're doing a lot of interesting stuff. So if somebody feels like they're not, they're losing out on the metaverse opportunity, I would suggest, buy Facebook or Microsoft stock.
ऑल्सो आई हैव अ क्वेश्चन दैट अभी मेटावर्स का ट्रेंड आया है, कुछ टाइम पहले वेब 3 के बारे में बात कर रहे थे और बहुत सारे ट्रेंड्स आते हैं लाइक सेमी कंडक्टर चिप. सो डू यू ऑल्सो कीप एडिंग स्टॉक्स इन योर पोर्टफोलियो अकॉर्डिंग टू द ट्रेंड्स और यू गो योर वे?
I try not to. So whatever is trending right now, I try not to buy it. I call them flavor of the season stocks. So whatever is being spoken about in the news today, I try as far as possible to avoid it. I never buy IPOs. I never buy the cool technologies of today. Because more often than not, when everybody's talking about them, they tend to be very expensive. I'd rather buy something which is off trend and is no longer cool. And we were talking about gold. Gold is a perfect example of that. Nobody's talking about gold today. It has become such an uncool investment. So I would look at buying gold today, and then when probably like 5 years down the line, something else becomes uncool, probably buy it then.
What I have understood from these 20 minutes कि आप safer जो investments है उनकी तरफ ज्यादा invest करते हो rather than जो risky है. Like अगर आप bonds में भी invest कर रहे हो तो आप वो government bonds जिनमें risk बहुत ही minimum एकदम बिल्कुल zero होता है उनमें invest करते हो. And हम लोग opposite कर रहे हैं. Like we have very small capital and then also we are investing in higher risky products. Okay, but
But
will
that is the thing, na? Like with smaller capital, you have to take higher risk. And I used to do that. But आजकल मैं दूसरों के पैसे मैनेज करता हूँ. I manage, capital for all these ultra HNIs across the world. And taking risk on your own money is one thing, but I don't have the heart to risk somebody else's capital. A- And मेरे ख्याल में, the biggest thing in stock markets is not being right, but being able to sustain over a prolonged period. So I would always favor the kind of investment where you can survive for 20, 30 years, your entire lifetime. If you survive for 30 years, you will thrive. The key is how do you survive? It doesn't matter if you make 5% return this year, 15% return next year. The key here is, to be able to be around for 30 years and remain in the green. That is the biggest key in stock markets.
also, sir, I wanted to ask a question about True Beacon. मैंने अभी वेबसाइट चेक किया तो उसमें था कि आप ब्रोकरेज एकदम तब चार्ज करते हो शायद जब आप प्रॉफिट किसी को जनरेट करके दे देते हो. इज इट सो? हाउ इज इट
Yes,
मतलब?
it's like a
हम्म,
yeah, it's like a mutual fund,
हम्म,
but it's a mutual fund for ultra HNIs and institutions. So our average ticket size is about $2 million. Uh, it's a pooled investment vehicle, also like a mutual fund. ऐसा नहीं कि each person's account is maintained separately. All of their money comes into a fund and the fund is invested. We don't charge brokerage there. We charge a carry. So funds like this typically charge a 2 and 20%. In the West, you call them hedge funds. Here we charge a 10% carry whenever you make a profit, if you make a profit. If you do not make a profit, we don't charge anything.
अमेजिंग क्योंकि आई हैव बीन इन वेल्थ मैनेजमेंट और क्लाइंट्स का एआईएफ जहां वो 1 करोड़ इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं बट उनको रिटर्न एक्चुअली में कभी कभी मतलब मोस्टली केसेस में 6 to 7% मिलता था एंड देन 2% हम खुद भी चार्ज कर रहे होते हैं तो उनके लिए वो एक पेन की तरह है बिकॉज इन्फ्लेशन तो उतना है ही तो दिस इज एक्चुअली वेरी गुड एंड आई वाज वेरी एक्साइटेड टू टॉक अबाउट ट्रू बेकन एंड लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द बजट एक्सपेक्टेशन ऑल्सो. अभी आपको क्या लग रहा है कि मार्केट्स अभी और ज्यादा वोलेटाइल होने वाली है या फिर जो जितना होना था वोलेटाइल हो गई अभी थोड़ा नॉर्मल हो जाएगा?
Or hoagie, in my opinion, we were doing some research and markets after budget month typically move more than 4, 5% a month in I think 60, 70% of the cases. So February will definitely be volatile. Uh, Budget day will also be volatile. Last night the US markets have done well and the Nasdaq is up 3% and all of that. So in all fairness, probably Monday morning जब markets खुलेंगे, so we will see a pop. Markets will open up, and then through the day, when news comes about like the budget and the different expectations, we will rationalize to what we expect from the budget day. In my personal experience, I don't like overtly volatile days. I feel like most people lose money when markets are extremely volatile. So I would like it if it's a normal day, market goes up 1% or down 1%, but I suspect that wouldn't be the case.
ओह अमेजिंग. एंड सर मैंने आपकी कई सारी पोस्ट देखी है इंटरव्यूज सुने हैं तो यू टॉक अबाउट इनहेरिटेंस टैक्स. तो अभी इंडिया में इनइक्वालिटी बहुत ज्यादा है तो आई थिंक वो सोल्यूशन होगा इनहेरिटेंस टैक्स इस चीज के लिए. आप मतलब आई वांट टू नो योर ओपिनियन.
Yeah, see, we charge income tax in India, but we kind of are focusing on a very small percentage of the country. Probably 2% of the country pays tax. In that 2%, some of the people are paying most of the tax. I don't think that is fair. Income is not concentrated in that 2% alone, but a much larger diaspora of our population. And to bring more people under the tax net is probably the solution to, grow the country and do better. So we have to go from 2% of the population paying tax to 20% of the population paying tax. We have to do things around that. Uh, Inheritance tax is one good way in which you bring down the wealth disparity, but I think it has to come in with a lot of other stuff. Think of property taxes, for example. So Neha has a big house in Delhi, right? If you had that same house in, say, Connecticut or California or even, European countries, you would be paying 1.5, 2% of the property's value every year as tax. And somebody with a bigger house would be paying more tax. In India, a lot of the tax evaded wealth sits in real estate. but property taxes are very low. So to increase property taxes, if everybody who owns a parcel of land has to end up paying property tax and at much higher than what we charge in India now, I think more people who are not paying tax today and evading, they will come under the tax net. So I would say a combination of property tax, inheritance tax, a bunch of like like good changes like that will actually help the government bring down the tax rate right now. I feel like the income tax rates today in the country are too high. I'll give you an example. If you're a company like us, right?
Mhm.
Uh, we pay 25% on top, right? Like if we make 100 rupees profit, we pay 25 rupees on tax. We are left with 75 rupees. If I take out my share of the profits from the company to, buy a house or do whatever, I have to pay another 43% dividend distribution tax on top of that. So effectively, I'm paying 53, 54% tax, and that is not accounting for, stamp duty and GST and STT and the other 100 taxes that I pay. So I don't think paying 53, 54% tax is fair. There was this president, American president called Richard Nixon, who did this exercise where he moved tax rates around. He took it to 50%, he took it to 40%, and he saw how people's behavior changed. When he brought it down to 20%, he realized that, at this point, you kind of like reach equilibrium. The incentive for somebody to evade taxes goes down significantly at 20%, and net, the tax collection actually becomes more. So I think the solution is that more people in India have to come under the tax net, and the tax rates for everybody else should go down, and it should be more reasonable.
And we are getting news about expenditure tax also. Will that help?
I don't know. I think expenditure and consumption is something that, there've always been two traditional models in which, two famous models in which people have looked at economies, right?
Okay,
Sorry.
so
Yeah, the one we have kind of like fixated upon in the West is pretty much what we call Keynesian, or what John Maynard Keynes, more expenditure, dump more money into the country, and then kind of like expect for consumption to drive growth. So I think expenditure tax and things around them could be a hindrance around that, and it might slow down the economy for a short while. So I'm not in favor of it.
just like GST ऐसा कुछ होने वाला है कुछ
GST is more indirect tax, right? Like अगर
इफेक्ट
आप सोचिए,
हम्म
see, transaction taxes are another way to go about it. Like if you look at, I'll give you an example. अगर आप UAE की बात देखें, right? Like they don't have income tax, but they have VAT. So on every transaction you pay 5%, and in turn the country gains. This guy Subramaniam Swamy talks about this a lot. He says abolish income tax, implement transaction tax alone. So in his use case, I think he said that GST has to go up from whatever slab 16, 17, 18. It has to go up to about 25%, and that will help negate the impact of removing income tax. See, my numbers might be wrong. I'm just like, randomly giving you vague numbers, but India collects what, 24 lakh crores of income tax in a year. Maybe about 6, 7 lakhs out of that will come from income tax. A vast majority comes from corporate tax. If you were to abolish income tax and you have to make that 6 lakh crore by increasing transaction tax, I don't know what that percentage has to be. Will it be like, 25%? Will it be whatever on transaction? But uh, it's a different approach to the same problem. I wouldn't say it's right or wrong. Now is if say a transaction tax of 20% is levied, and each time you go to buy a shoe which costs like 10,000 rupees, you pay 12,000 instead. But in return, if you're earning 10,000 salary, you don't pay 2,500 in tax. I would assume through transaction tax, more people would pay tax. So maybe that works.
which is good for economy. Okay,
Yeah,
this is the final round. We'll have this rapid fire round where you have to answer in just few seconds. So describe
sure.
yourself in 3 words.
Uh, that's very tough. It's the toughest question to answer. I would say Curious. I'm quite a curious person. I want to find out more about things I do not know.
Mhm.
Insecure in my own ways. I have many, many insecurities in life. And uh, I often kind of like fight the existential problem in my own head, like what is the purpose of A? What is the purpose of money? What is the purpose of, uh,
Mhm.
different things, life altogether. Yeah, so three things about it.
Okay, five stocks or industries in which one should invest or one should add to their watch list.
Well, I think, old school commodities had become uncool because people were focusing on ESG and green energy. I think they will become increasingly relevant again. So, I mean, like, coal, thermal power, even like steel, any commodity stocks, I think they will be interesting. Outside of that, I like insurance. I like companies like Star Health Insurance, which are kind of like helping more people get health insurance in the country. Uh, I even of late like stocks like, PVR and things which will come back quickly when the pandemic ends. I think people are too sick of sitting at home. Those I find interesting as well.
Do
The
you
opening
think
up story stocks.
renewable energy या semiconductor अभी overvalued नहीं है industry या is it?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think they're a bit too overvalued.
Hmm. Your favorite YouTube channels?
Favorite YouTube channel. There's a guy called Lex Friedman.
Mhm.
He's a Russian living in America. I think he teaches at MIT. He's a professor there. But he talks a lot about, like psychology and history and the new technologies of today. And he interviews all the best people in the world, right? Like he recently interviewed Pfizer CEO. Before that, he interviewed Elon Musk and people like that. And he's really good. I think I'm a big fan of history, and I like, like listening to stories about Mao or Hitler or Stalin and all the crazy people we've had
I think you read a lot of books around that also. Do you want to recommend some book, your favorite books?
on history.
Or in history?
Not specifically about history, but more from a philosophy standpoint, I would recommend like Greek philosophers. Everybody from Plato to Socrates to Aristotle. I'm talking like like the pre-Christianity ones as well. These guys were good. They never preached. They only kind of like advocated curiosity. They said question everything, question religion, question God, question marriage, question all preconceived notions that societies follow. So I think those guys are good. You can buy books about any of them and read.
Okay, next is biggest mistake you have ever done stock market while trading or investing.
Many, yeah, many. Like I'll tell you, like when I started trading, like at the very beginning, I would buy these penny stocks. They would go up 200%, and then one day all 10 of them would fall. But many, many mistakes. I've had many bad days. Budget is generally a bad time for me. I'm not a fan of volatility, and it can end up kind of like not doing too well around budget. So too many to count in terms of loss-making trades and big mistakes I've done in this.
Were you any time trapped in operator's trap? Did that
Well,
happen?
maybe when see off late in the last maybe 5, 6 years, I
Mhm.
only stick to large cap equity. I don't trade smaller stocks. So not so much in that. I think even if there are operator driven stocks, they tend to be in the mid cap, small cap segment, and I don't do anything there.
And one thing you hate about markets, equity market.
Nothing, yeah. Like, losing money, making money, I'm kind of like addicted, right? Like I often say this to myself, if I stopped making money and I lost money for the next 10 years and
Mhm.
I went broke, I would still probably be sitting and investing and trading because I enjoy it.
Okay, movies or series.
Movies and series. I watched, there's this show called Ozark on Netflix. The new season is out. I was watching it last night. Actually, like even before this. call that we are doing, I was watching the show. Brilliant. It's about a family which loses everything and moves to a remote location, and they start money laundering and doing stupid stuff. So, very intriguing. I find it quite interesting.
Okay, beach or mountain?
Mountain.
Okay. Zerodha or True Beacon?
Zerodha.
Zerodha, okay. And few words for our channel.
Well, like I was telling you at the beginning of this call, it is incredible that Neha and your entire cohort of influencers around finance are putting in such an effort to create content which is easy to understand, which is making so many more investors and people starting off in the market, giving them so much access to information and making them better, more informed investors. And I think, like you guys will be the news channels of 10 years from now. People consume news in different ways. Uh, I think that industry is fast evolving, but I think social media influencers and people in fintech, such as yourself, will be where people go to consume news, not now, but like, 10 years down the line. See, news in its purest form is just information, but when it comes from somebody like you, there is your influence on it, right? Like you have an opinion and a unique insight on it. And I think that will become increasingly relevant and more interesting, and the future is in that direction.
एंड मुझे ना क्वेश्चंस दिख रहे हैं, मुझे पूछना पड़ेगा. डू यू वॉच शार्क टैंक?
नहीं यार, मैंने देखा नहीं है. आई वॉच द अमेरिकन वन, बट आई डोंट गेट द चैनल. क्या बोलते हैं उसको, सोनी ना? I
सॉरी.
don't get it on my see. मैं देखता हूँ Netflix and Prime, and I think on either of them the TV show is not, the TV channel is not there. I don't have that cable network, but I've seen videos online. Like जो आपको social media में दिखती है when people upload clips, and these people are friends of mine. Like Ashneer is a good friend. I know the Shark Tank team as well. But I think they're doing a good job, yeah. I think to encourage entrepreneurship is important. And if the end result of all of this is, more entrepreneurs come about and more people want to start off doing business in India, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you, sir. This is all about it. Thank you for joining. It was great. And thank you.
Thank you, Neha. Have a lovely Sunday. Bye.
Yes, sir. Bye bye.